Happy Sunday, August 24th. It's about 8 p.m. West Coast time. There was a horrifying article in The Guardian a couple of days ago. Israeli military's own data indicates a civilian death rate of 83% in the Gaza war, meaning of the total number of people who have been killed in Gaza, 83% of them have been civilians, according to the Israeli military's own data. When you go to war against a specific target and you completely obliterate a geographical area, killing tens of thousands of people, and you only manage to hit your target 17% of the time, that kind of gives away what your real intention is in that war. Eradicating Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip, I think. Figures from classified IDF database listed 8,900 named Hamas fighters or Palestinian radical groups total through May as dead or probably dead, as the overall official death toll reached 53,000. It's been estimated by a Harvard researcher to be closer to 400,000, half of them being children. And then the Lancet medical journal put out an article about a year ago estimating the death toll to be between 200 and 600,000 Palestinians. Figures from classified Israeli military intelligence databases indicate 5 out of 6 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces in Gaza have been civilians, an extreme rate of slaughter rarely matched in recent decades of war. As of May 19th, months into the war, Israeli intelligence officials listed 8,900 named fighters from Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad as dead or probably dead. A joint investigation by The Guardian, the Israeli-Palestinian publication Plus 972 magazine, and the Hebrew language outlet Local Call has found. At that time, 53,000 Palestinians had been killed by Israeli attacks, according to health authorities in Gaza, a toll that included combatants and civilians. Fighters named in Israeli intelligence military database accounted for just 17% of that total, indicating that 83% of the dead were civilians. That apparent ratio of civilians to combatants among the dead is extremely high for modern warfare, even compared with conflicts notorious for indiscriminate killing of civilians, including the Syrian and Sudanese civil wars. Quote, that proportion of civilians among those killed would be unusually high, particularly as it has been going on for such a long time, said Therese Peterson from the Uppsala Conflict Data Program, which tracks civilian casualties worldwide. If you single out a particular city or battle in another conflict, you might find similar rates, but rarely overall for the entire conflict. In global conflicts tracked by the UCDP since 1989, civilians made up a greater proportion of the dead only in 3 other conflicts. Srebrenica in the early 90s, in the Rwandan genocide, 99.8%, or during the Russian siege of Mariupol in 2022 at 95%. Many genocide scholars, lawyers, and human rights activists, including Israeli academics and campaign groups, say Israel is committing genocide inside Gaza, citing the mass killing of civilians and imposed forced starvation that's happening right now. The Israeli military did not dispute the existence of the database or dispute the data on Hamas and PIJ deaths when approached for comment. When The Guardian asked for comment on the same data, a spokesperson said they had decided to rephrase their response. A brief statement sent to The Guardian did not directly address questions about the military intelligence database. The military said, quote, figures presented in the article are incorrect, close quote, without specifying which data they said was incorrect. They also said the numbers, quote, do not reflect the data available in the IDF's systems, close quote, without offering further details, even though the figures cited in this article came from the IDF's own database. The database names 47,653 Palestinians considered to be active in military wings of Hamas and the PIJ. It is based on apparent internal documents from the groups seized in Gaza, which have not been viewed or verified by The Guardian. Multiple intelligence sources familiar with the database said the military viewed it as the only authoritative tally of militant casualties. People are promoted to the rank of terrorist after death, said one intelligence source who accompanied forces on the ground. If I had listened to the brigade, I would have come to the conclusion that we had killed 200% of Hamas operatives in the area. Even though much of Gaza has been reduced to ruins and tens of thousands of people killed, the classified database lists nearly 40,000 people considered by the army to be militants and still alive. Hang on one sec. Meaning that at the beginning of the conflict, if there were 47,000 members of Hamas and related groups, almost 2 years in, the Israeli military has only killed 15% of those militants. 85% of them remain alive, according to Israeli military data. The ratio of civilian casualties among the dead has increased further since May, when Israel tried to replace UN and humanitarian organizations that had fed Palestinians throughout the war. Israeli forces have killed hundreds of people trying to get food from distribution centers in the military exclusion zones. Now starving survivors, already forced into just 20% of the territory, have been ordered to leave the north as Israel prepares for another ground operation, their invasion of Gaza City, that is likely to have more catastrophic consequences for civilians. The ratio of civilians among the dead in Gaza was more comparable in recent wars to Sudan, Yemen, Uganda, Syria, where much of the violence had been directed against civilians on purpose. Hint, hint. One official said, these are wars where the armed groups tend to avoid battle. They don't want to fight each other. They want to control territory, and they do that by killing civilians. Maybe it is the same within Israel. And this is a model of war in Gaza that is about dominating a population and controlling land. Maybe the objective has always been forced displacement. Duh. That's now the official policy. Forced displacement of all Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip is now official policy of the Israeli government and the Israeli military. It was always about ethnic cleansing. It was always about ethnic cleansing.